Welcome back, dear friends, after quite a long break because we were in a caravan on the Isle of Wight in a very, very windy field. But it was lovely. We managed to get to the sea lots of times and have some swims and everything. And I got back and I've got a couple of projects pending. One is to finally get Erin, the US truck driver's timezone clock, completed. With that, one of my favourite things that I've ever made. This the first 3D, all 3D printed and then assembled thing. Very exciting. I'm so thrilled with that. And there's the clock outside that's ready to paint. I haven't painted it because I don't want it to get scratched. So there's that. And also a very exciting project. Someone's asked me whether I can build a Tardis Control Consol, a full-size one, and a sonic screwdriver. So that's all very exciting. But before I started any of those, I thought it's time to sort the extension out. You remember, if you've watched these videos before, what a complete and utter shambles it is. And you'll also remember that just before I went on holiday, in the sweltering heat, which I have to say changed the morning we went on holiday, 4 weeks of sweltering heat. Anyway, mustn't grumble. I finished building the shed, and left it empty. Very exciting. So now I've got back, what I've done is discover parts of the extension, the workshop, that I didn't know I had. I haven't seen this pinball machine for about 4 years. Because if you remember, it got completely covered in storage boxes, packaging. I never would have thought packaging would take up so much room because I'm an idiot, because obviously it does. So I've got all those boxes in the shed, which is fantastic. And I can finally play the lovely Simpsons pinball machine, which my wife very, very, very kindly bought me years ago as a surprise Christmas present. It is fantastic, an absolute classic, so that's great. I used to have, because you don't realise how big pinball machines are until they're out of a sort of public events venue situation into your own home. It takes up a lot of room. I used to have 3. This is obviously a fully electronic version. And the first one was a bowler ball, which was purely mechanical, absolutely fantastic, electromechanical. Didn't work and took ages to work out and get it working, but it was so enjoyable because you didn't need to understand sort of black boxes with lots of wires going into it, computers in other words. You could actually see the mechanisms, the rotating mechanical, electromechanical switches and digital displays. Oh, it's just fabulous. And then I also got a Central Park one that someone gave me who didn't want it, and that didn't work either, but I managed to get that working as well. And as I say, I used to have all 3 of them here, but it took up practically half the workshop, so I've got one stored in the shed and I've sold the other one. Anywho, so I've got that done. And I've got carpet now. I've got things, areas that I can walk round, as I say, I haven't seen for ages. Other spare parts for the lathe underneath. It's very exciting. And what I'm doing today at the moment is tidying up actually under there. It's pulling out all sorts of stuff that I haven't seen for ages. And one of the things that I found was this very, very nice, top of the range quality drawer from Kitchen Units. Absolute top of the range, because a friend installs these top of the range kitchen units. Look at that, dovetailed everything. Oh, it's beautiful. And he was moving away and he had a loft full of bits that he hadn't used or were surplus to requirements that he couldn't bear to part with. So he gave them to me, not being one who could ever turn away anything. So that I found under the pinball machine. I thought, what can I do with it? Then I thought, look, underneath the lathe. The space, there's the wood store, and there's space here. How fabulous to have a drawer. It does actually fit. So what I'm currently doing is making 2 vertical bits to support the sliders, the runners. And it was just one of those things really. I found 2 scraps of wood that were the perfect width. I just thought this is meant to be. So I've screwed them together, cut bits out and stuff. And I just had to show you these runners. As I say, top of the range kitchen, probably £150,000 for a kitchen or something. And I'm not surprised. You know, normal kitchen runners are really quite simple and basic. This thing, it's unbelievable. I don't know what any of it does. There's little wheels and little rollers and other bits. And look at this. I can't even show you. Doing too many things. Look at this, there's a little piston here, so as it runs shut, look, and it grips it, and there's little toggle latches, and it is unbelievable. And this, funnily enough, I was thinking, oh, what a shame I can't use this, because look at that, the other bits are missing, the bits that attach this to the drawer. But no, there's a funny little hole in the back that that pin pushes into, and a very complicated thing here with more adjustments than I have ever seen in my life. There are so many little things that you can adjust. Oh, it's incredible. That pushes into there, that clips on there, so I'm just going to screw these on, and I'm not going to do it properly with measurements and everything else and fixing the brackets in place. First, fix it all together, get these side panels, offer it into place, if you will, and then screw it into place, hopefully not to screw it up. This really is very enjoyable, because as you've seen, you just get used to things as they are, and you just end up stepping over things, climbing over things, having to reach way out of the way for other stuff. I've had this thing sitting here on a pile of other things, which I've subsequently moved, full of rags and sticky tape dispensers. Don't ask me why. It's absolutely ridiculous. So what I've done, I've rationalised this. I've sorted out these shelves, the drawers rather, moved them up, and look, I can now get to my packaging stuff. How fantastic. And other useful things like my collection of cardboard flaps I've cut off the ends of boxes, which I can't bear to part with. Are useful for mixing glue, but just how much glue I'm going to be mixing I'm not sure. But anyway, you know, a drawer, there's all the polish and the rags now. And all the paint, spray paint, and all that now is just sitting underneath there. I think I'm going to get another one of these. They're by Gratnels, that's right, who make all these storage cupboards and drawers and things. Very, very useful. Because my aim is to get rid of this central bit. If I'm going to start building Tardis consoles, I'm not going to have room, and it's been bugging me for ages, so I'm clearing out underneath, and I need somewhere to put the 3D printer, and another one of those trolleys would be ideal, because it just means I can move it round should I need to, and I can store all the consumables like the filaments underneath. Oh yes, in other news, I realised obviously that you're meant to store filament in a very dry environment, in a vacuum preferably, and I wasn't, and I thought I'd better, so I think it was about £15 for 10 bags. You get 10 of these really good sealing bags, you get a little air pump. I've stuck tape over the valves just to make sure that air doesn't get in, but you suck all the air out, you get some silica gel bags, and you get 10 of these little humidity detector things. I don't know whether they work, but they look nice. So again, get consumables in drawers underneath the 3D printer. Several hours later, and many mistakes, it has to be said, I have got them fixed up there. So I've got them screwed up there, got the runners put on and everything, which I had to do about 3 times adjusting them because it didn't leave enough gap here. I mean, even with an extra 5mm, there's only 2mm gap. Anywho, let's see it work. Ooh, look at that. Handy place to keep the gauge kits and ready-made ones, and then you push it to, it doesn't work. Oh well, that's not. It may not look like it, but things have moved on a treat. For a start, I looked up the cost of one of these trolleys, the Gratnels one, so I could put the 3D printer on it, and it's about 100 and something, 120 quid without any trays, so it's quite a lot of money. Too much for you to justify, so, pulling my finger, beep 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 beep, I found or rediscovered this. It's been sitting in one of the wooden sheds. That's a wooden shed for years. Finally, that's why it's worth keeping every single thing you've ever come across. I've got a use for it. I'm going to clean it up a little bit, oil the wheels, and rest the thing on the top. Now also, just how many cables do you need to collect? I think I've got enough to open the Museum of the History of Cables and Audio and Visual Connections. I have got about 3 or 4 of these huge deep trays full of this stuff. My friend popped over the other day and he sort of saw them and laughed and said he'd just been into his wooden shed and couldn't believe how many SCART cables he's got. I mean, you just don't have SCART connections anymore. It's all HDMI and heaven only knows what. Far more complicated and you can't get into them, but there you go. So I'm being ruthless. I'm going through these drawers. They've been sitting there. I sometimes rifle through for finding something, but I'm just going to start being ruthless and chuck this stuff away, because as he pointed out, it's just, you don't like to get rid of it. I mean, look, a lovely breakout box for a SCART lead. When am I ever going to need that again? Ever. So, clear some more drawer space. A few months ago, a couple of months ago, a nice person who makes models, miniatures, got in touch and asked about some laser cut gears, and I saw he sent me some photos of things that he'd made, and I just brought back the love that I used to have of 00 gauge model railways stuff. It wasn't so much a model railway as an excuse just to make little miniature houses. Is when I prepared about, well, I was about 13 or 14 I think, so a long time ago. It was a plastic kit of a mill, water mill, something always fascinating about water mills and wheels and things. And I painted it and added tiles, and great fun. And then for some reason built inside walls and thought I'd make the inside of the mill workings. Here's a little base, and I found this has come apart because of double-sided tape. That gives you some idea of how long ago this was. I remember being so pleased when I discovered or realised my parents had had a bottle of wine or something, and the cork was one of those plastic injection moulded ones, and I realised that by cutting it apart I could make a gear, and it worked. I was so pleased about that. Little bits of balsa wood, a thing at the top with a vibrating bit that would vibrate something, I can't even remember what, and somewhere inside there's the grindstones that did actually turn, and little chains that you could engage to pull the sack. Oh, I used to love doing that. And then I met girls for a start, and then I just ended up going to college, school, education, all the rest of it. Well, I was actually in education when I was 13. Another story. Just got so bogged down in everything having to have a purpose, and the purpose of really enjoying making something not being sufficient, which is very sad. But I'm so pleased to say that finally I persuaded, after this interest and refinding this model, that my son has started getting involved and interested, and he's making his first one. And then hopefully, once he's put the outside together, he'll then make the inside, which I did on several of the models, with separate rooms out of cardboard with little fairy lights that were the only light bulbs I could get small enough in those days to light all the rooms. So it's all very exciting. Still nothing to do with steampunk. And by the way, film of choice, that's not the film of choice. The film of choice currently is Lawless. Very, very good. Shia LaBeouf, Tom Hardy, Gary Oldman, Jessica Chastain, who is in some brilliant films. Very, very good. About moonshiners and things like that. Excellent. Now, we've not mentioned steampunk at all this time. There's a steampunk thing. The original one, I'm very pleased to say, the new one is the one that I finished just before I went away, is complete and is still working perfectly. And there are some more steampunk gauges just to keep the theme up. The two that are most popular, because I've just made a load more, are the Steamhead ones and the T ones. They're very popular, so I've just printed out a load more and glued them together. Ready. So there we are, a little bit of steampunky stuff. Sorry, there's not more this time. I'm getting all reminiscent. I've just looked on top of the freezer, where a store of all sorts of bits and pieces, and found this other model that I made years ago for, it was the set design for Outside Edge, that's right. In Amateur Dramatics group that very luckily, and still very luckily, has its own stage and things that we've got use of all the time. So we can build lovely sets. Oh, just modelling. I miss it. I need to convince myself somehow that it is a valuable thing to do, and me having joy brought to my life by making miniatures is worthwhile and sufficient in itself. Even a little dartboard with lots of holes where the darts have missed. What fun. So, 3D printer, nice top, perfect room for consumables, the filament, and Victoria, the automaton storage, temporary storage hopefully, until I get around to finishing her. That is now great, so that's on wheels, so I can move that wherever I want, and if I need to clear the whole room, put it in the guinel, the side passage. sometime later and we've reached a milestone. The camera hasn't got a wide enough angle lens to get the enormous amount of space in, but look, dear friends, there's nothing in the middle, just room possibly to build a Tardis Control Consol. Oh, and the other thing is, while I think of it, there's one of these boxes full of very, very exciting laser cuts, offcuts and things that I've made that I don't need, and gears and all sorts of exciting stuff. I'm loath to throw it away, because hence the fact I've kept it. If anyone would be interested in having this lot, it weighs 6.7 kilograms. I will put that in stones and things, stones and shillings or whatever it is, up on the screen. If you're happy to pay the postage cost for 6.7 kilograms to wherever you are, I will happily send you this lot of stuff. Do let me know if you're interested in the comments, or email me at john@steamhead.co.uk. I'll stop this video now because me tidying up is not the most interesting of things. As I say, very little mention of steampunk or anything this time, but it has been a voyage of discovery, an archaeological dig, if you like, back through the last 4 or 5 years. Hope to see you next time. Thanks very much for watching, and I promise next time, whoop, a little bit of steampunk there, we will focus on steampunk inventions again. Thanks very much.